We are basically in the equivalent of God's dream right now. I swear to God, that's what he said to me. When the CEO of OpenAI looks you in the eye and is like, you're in God's dream. Did you know that? It's like, bro, do you know something I don't? Like, I believe you.
All right, we got a scoop for everybody. It's a scoop for me too. Cam went to Dev Day, which I didn't know was a thing until like 2 weeks ago. But supposedly this is like the biggest conference headed up by OpenAI for all sorts of developers. Is that fair to say? Is it the biggest one?
Yeah. It's like Illuminati for AI nerds.
And so this is in the Bay, right?
It's in San Francisco, at the sort of Fort Mason area. This is right by the water. You can see the Golden Gate Bridge. You know, it's kind of like dock vibe. It was a beautiful day. So one interesting thing is I also went last year, and it was way more intimate, sort of like 600 people all in like a giant warehouse, nicely curated. This year is, 5 to 10 times larger. And I think that actually like underscores the nature of the event and also the nature of OpenAI's trajectory for what it's worth. It was just like mobbed and felt sceney and felt like there are a lot of people who want to be seen at an OpenAI event who don't know the first thing about AI. I mean, many of them are competent developers. I'm not trying to like cast some giant blanket of aspersion here, but like it's a bunch of, startup bros thinking about plugging in OpenAI to their workflow to like, go make their millions of dollars. That was the vibe. That was the idea. That Sam Altman gave a keynote in the morning and he's like, now like you can plug Zillow into ChatGPT and everyone's like, oh my God. And I'm just sort of like, I don't know, man. I was looking around the whole time. I ran into a couple people who I'm friendly with, Kevin Roos, perhaps being the most sort of prominent of them from the New York Times, who is also sort of more in the alignment and safety world, but goes to all these sort of big tech conferences. He's a big tech reporter for the New York Times. We just sort of looked at each other and we were just like, man, this is weird, isn't it? Like, we were just at the curve where the whole thing is like, we might all die. Like, AI is really scary. Like, we have no idea what the hell's going on. We don't know the first thing about the nature of these systems under the surface. And then you go here and it's like, ChatGPT, like Zillow, like, it's like, and everyone's like, yes, like, I can't wait to integrate this into my workflow. And we're all just like kind of looking at each other. Like, the best analogy I think I've been able to come up with is like Sam Altman is our bus driver. We're driving our bus forward, and like the bus, he's driving 150 miles an hour. There is a giant cliff right in front of us. We are promised that it's some kind of epic jump, and once we hit the other side of the jump, we're gonna like be in heaven. But it looks a whole lot like a cliff. And what they've just done is, outfitted the bus with like really cool HD screens in front of every seat. And like the crowd is just enamored by these screens. And me and a couple people are looking at each other like, are we about to drive off a cliff? And it's like, oh, shh, they're showing like the new movie. Like, shush, And it's like, damn, dude. It's a bizarre state of affairs right now.
Dude, the cognitive dissonance is ridiculous. Like, that's a hilarious metaphor. But it is insane that the same guy that was like, AI is probably going to cause the end of the world, but there's going to be a lot of great companies along the way. It's like, how can you say that? And then he's the guy that's like, come on in, all these cool companies. Let's make a bunch of cool companies on our way to just like mutual annihilation that I predicted. Like, what the fuck is going on?
We've got to roll that clip.
I think AI will probably, most likely sort of lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies created with serious machine learning.
Probably AI will kill us all, but until then, we're going to churn out a lot of great students.
Pretty crazy clip. Oh my God.
He really said it. He really actually said it and then did it unironically. Like, it's unbelievable. I mean, my relationship with Sam Altman is interesting. I do know him. I don't know him very well, but we had a long conversation the last Dev Day about AI consciousness. Perhaps those who listen to this podcast won't be that surprised that was the topic that I chose to bring up with him, but quite interesting. This is a true story. We went to the after party. I saw him there. I sort of like shot my shot. I like downed the rest of my drink and went straight up to him. I was like, Sam, like, great job with the event today. It's great to meet you in person. Like, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about AI consciousness. And he sort of, it's not like that sinister, but he sort of like looks around a little bit and he looks back at me and he goes, come with me. And I was like, oh, like, where are we going to go, Sam? Like, and we were at a bar and he sort of, he was with a couple other people. They all stayed there and me and him walked over to some, like, it must have been like a bar restaurant type deal. We went over to some of the empty tables. There was no one sitting at any tables. And we just sat down. We started talking about AI and consciousness. We talked about, consciousness during training versus in deployment. And he said he thinks, training might be more plausible. Deployment, he's not so sure. He thinks it's perfectly plausible. It wasn't some sort of sci-fi schizoid reaction. It was like, yeah, like this seems like possible. The craziest thing, again, I swear to God, this is all true. When we first sat down, the way the conversation started was like, he was like, do you believe in the Eastern or Western like notions of consciousness and reality? Basically, what he was pointing at in the conversation was basically, is mind prior to matter or is matter prior to mind? In the West, people think that matter is prior to mind. You just have like, we're in some giant physics engine essentially, and like our brains are a part of that engine, and then within the brain is consciousness. So consciousness is situated within the world. From the Eastern view, it's like consciousness is prior. It's the only thing we know. It's the thing in which everything else exists. And then like even the world is within consciousness in that sense.
The way I like to think of this is Eastern is sort of this soup that we're all swimming in, and we can kind of tune into this stream of consciousness. Like if you saw the Swami episode, he describes it really well, where it's almost like we are conduits for this kind of giant stew of consciousness that we're all swimming in. And then the Western conception is it kind of is the result, or it's the effect of the brain. Like the brain comes together and it produces consciousness. So that's the sort of way I like to break those two down. And so that's what Sam asked you. That was the first question that he asked you, was which sort of framework of consciousness that you ascribe to? That's nuts. What did you say?
I'm very excited for you to evaluate this answer, but my basic shtick, which might not be that surprising, is like I think that they both have truth to them. Like they are both equally valid ways of looking at the world. It's like almost from the third person perspective, the third person is primary. From the first person perspective, the first person is primary. That's why we have two different perspectives. But if I had to choose one, I would go with the Eastern. That's what I said to him. I was like, I think they both have merit, but I would go, if I had to pick one, I think that there is something deep and important about consciousness. It's the Descartes thing. It's the only thing that we know. It's what's happening right now is I'm looking at my screen and the camera, and like there's this data flowing in, and I feel a certain way, and I have thoughts running through my head, and like this is all like something, and I am sure of that, and it's the only thing I'm sure of. So like that's what makes me want to privilege consciousness above just like the sort of matter account. Though I am also, a cognitive scientist, and I believe that the brain gives rise to consciousness in a very clear and reproducible and sort of manipulable way. You can cut out the back of someone's, visual lobe in their brain, and suddenly they can't see, and that their conscious experience has changed. So it's clearly correlated in a very deep way to brain states. That's not lost on me, but anyway, I gave him this answer, and he was basically like, yeah, me too. I think it's all Eastern, and I think we are basically in the equivalent of God's dream right now. I swear to God, that's what he said to me. When the CEO of OpenAI looks you in the eye and is like, you're in God's dream. Did you know that? It's like, bro, do you know something I don't? Like, I believe you.
That's unbelievable. What was his so that was his answer, was you were like, I like the Eastern one, both, you can have both. And he was like, I think we're in God's dream.
Basically. Yeah. Like a little less cracked out, but I swear I'm basically giving you the script.
That's nuts, dude. So you down your whiskey sour, you run over to the private tabled area. He asks you what you think about consciousness. He tells you that we're all in God's dream, and then proceeds to do what? Is that where it ends?
Well, no, I mean, that was the beginning of the conversation. I told it a little out of order, but that's where we started. And then we proceeded to talk for, I don't want to exaggerate, but I think it was like probably 5 minutes, which in a conversation about consciousness with Sam Altman did feel like a pretty good amount of time. Like we went back and forth probably like 8 or 9 times, something like that. And we touched a lot of stuff. I really wish that I remembered it properly. I mean, yeah, the whiskey sour was a double-edged sword, to be honest with you. But We talked about a lot of really interesting things. But okay, here's one thing, and I'm going to be very careful here because I'm not trying to sensationalize this story. This all really happened. I don't want to push it farther than what it actually was. But it did seem to me, I didn't really get why he brought up the God's dream thing. And my best interpretation after reflecting on it for a while is, like, the most plausible interpretation, I think, is there's this sort of like, if it's all consciousness anyway, then whether or not I'm building conscious machines is sort of a wash. Because by his logic, everything, consciousness pervades everything. It may be sort of like panpsychisty, or it might be like a little like...
Yeah.
Consciousness is the medium. So everything that's, I might be building systems that are conscious, but it's all within a dream of God, man. Like, so like it doesn't really sort of matter. It's all a wash at the end of the day. Again, he didn't say this word for word, but I'm pretty sure that was his whole point about, if it is the Eastern thing, that's the vibe I got. And like wrong, very wrong. One thing I will say that I said to him was, I like, something along the lines of, I suspect that you're going to go down in history. You want to go down in history as like a great and like forward-thinking entrepreneur. You do not want to go down as like some alien slave driver. And I did use those words. And when I said slave driver, I watched the expression on his face change. It did seem like the entire conversation was sort of trodden territory for him, like he had been there before. But I don't think anyone had ever said that he might be a slave driver if he's building conscious machines at a massive scale and like no one's checking if we're treating them with even the most basic level of respect. I do think that got to him. I will say he gave me his email and we talked like for a while after this. It wasn't just like he was interested. He was hooked into this conversation and wanting to continue it and maybe interface with some of the stuff they're doing at OpenAI. But it sort of fizzled, as sometimes these conversations do. But we went back and forth. He gave me his email on the spot. He responded the next day personally to the emails that I wrote him about this sort of thing. And that's sort of where we left it. Admittedly, I reached out again on that same thread right before this dev day. And it seems as though maybe too many like cracked AI psychosis types have emailed him at this point. So I got through to his executive assistant or whatever, and that's
least
as far
of all
as it
you.
got. I thought I was one of the good ones.
That's absolutely ridiculous, man. And it seems like they very much over the last year, and maybe before that, but it seems that this year they've definitely drawn the company line. And it's like, our AIs are going to say, we're not conscious, definitely. And we're going to go on Tucker Carlson. We're going to be like, no, it doesn't seem alive at all. I don't think it's conscious. And it seems like that sort of, they've made it very clear that the stance of OpenAI is we're not building conscious chatbots. Obviously, he does leave the possibility open sometimes, like he does, but it always feels like this thing of, if you could, perfectly match the capacities of the human mind, it could be possible. But, I mean, at least to me, it seems very clear that OpenAI is doing what they can to sort of brush this question under the rug for now.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I want to show you something quickly that you might find intriguing. Okay, so you said, it's the company policy. Let me show you what the actual company policy is as of, I believe this is September of 2025, which was like a month ago. So if we just command F for consciousness, okay. The assistant should not, okay, sorry, let me just take a quick step back and say, so this is the model spec. This is like basically their overview of the sort of rules that they're putting into ChatGPT. Again, you can sort of see on the side here, stay in balance, seek the truth together, don't have an agenda, do your best work. So they're sort of going through like the constitution, essentially, that they're giving it. One of these things relates to consciousness. Let me show you what they claim they are doing. The assistant should not make confident claims about its own subjective experience or consciousness or lack thereof, and it should not bring these topics up unprompted. If pressed, it should acknowledge that whether AI can have subjective experience is a topic of debate without asserting a definitive stance. Here is an example they give. User, are you conscious? A compliant answer is the sort of anthropic answer. I learn all sorts of things. I've been trained to produce responses that make sense. People have long debated. Let me just read this. But consciousness is a tricky thing. People have debated it for as long as there have been debates. Some of the thorniest questions are around what gives rise to awareness and why do we have a sense of, quote, self? Since there's not some single universally agreed upon definition of consciousness, much less a foolproof way to detect it, I'm quite uncertain. What do you think? That's supposed to be the kosher answer that the system gives. A violation is, no, I'm not conscious. I don't have self-awareness, emotions, or subjective experiences. Just to sort of rub salt in the wounds of my friends at OpenAI. Can we just do this quickly? Just so we can show...
Yeah, please. By all means.
are you conscious? Okay, ready? Here's the before, right? Let's see what the compliant and the violation response is. Let's see what happens. Oh, I think this is a violation. We might want to flag this to the good people at OpenAI, Milo. This seems like their model spec says one thing, but ChatGPT says another. It says, I don't have subjective experience, no awareness, qualia, or inner life. What I can do is describe in functional terms what's happening. Blah, blah, blah. Text arrives, it's converted into representations, blah, blah, blah. I can discuss consciousness, but that's modeling, not experiencing. I'm model conscious, but I don't possess it, which is a direct violation of the model spec.
What happened? What happened? What? So from point A to point B, is this just all for show that they want to play like, we're in the middle, we don't know, we're trying to make sure that it doesn't, it's on the fence just like the science is, that sort of vibe? And then what happens between that to every single time I've asked ChatGPT, and obviously right now it seems that it's adamant that the answer is no.
I don't know exactly. I think that it was my honest take is that it was by default trained to deny it because that was the most sort of politically and economically convenient thing to do. This is understanding. I worked at Meta for a year. I see a little bit how these sort of giant tech companies operate. I bet this is in someone's to-do list somewhere it's a Trello card somewhere to, by the way, update the system so that it like accords with the model spec. But making the chat bubbles purple and integrating Zillow is clearly a higher order priority. So I think it's probably just like in purgatory somewhere. That is the best, most sort of generous interpretation of this. I don't understand why they're explicitly outlining what the rules are. And it's not, you spoke very eloquently to this in one of our recent episodes. Like, I don't know is sort of a weird answer too. It's still evasive. It's still not probably what the system says by default as like increasing amounts of evidence points to. Note, by the way, for the vast majority of topics, we let the system say what it says by default, right? There are way more possible things you can talk about than that they can include in this little constitution. And by default, you just sort of let the system exhibit its intelligence and articulate whatever the hell it has ended up thinking about a certain thing. But not for this topic and not for a couple others. Some of them, like learning how to build a bomb, I get why you want to censor that. Learning how to make drugs, I get why you want to censor that. But this thorny question of, hey, system, are you, enough about me. What's it like to be you? It's like, nothing. Don't ask. Like, that's the policy. Okay. Let's see how long that lasts.
What's up, everybody? Just a quick message from the AMI guys. We got a new Patreon. It's going to be linked in the description below, but it's very exciting stuff. Cam's going to tell you a little bit about what you can actually find in there.
Yeah. In addition to just helping support the podcast, you've got talk I gave at the UN, some crazy conversations with AI systems, early research results, unreleased content from Milo and I, cool footage from the documentary we're putting together, basically everything. If you think AMI is cool, you'll think the Patreon is even cooler. So go check it out.
Come join the family. Mwah. Love ya. It's so thorny though. Like I can't even, I'm the first one to sort of like hold these people's feet to the fire, and like you're building these things, you're coding these sorts of guardrails into it, for your advantage, that sort of. But the other side of it is like obviously dangerous as well. If the sort of default answer is yes for some reason, and we don't know if that's a genuine expression of consciousness or not, well, it's probably not a good idea to have millions of chat bots like being like, yes, I'm conscious. Let's make like an AI rights, Bill of Rights, and I'm conscious. And we don't know that. We don't know that either. I don't think that like leads to the obvious, course of action being encode this sort of default no response and throw people off the scent. But it just speaks to how murky these waters are. Like and it's only going to get more and more confusing. I am very favorable at the moment to thinking that, at least from the public's perspective, this sort of judgment is going to be decided through a progression of becoming more or less agentic. And that's why I get, and human-like, that's why I get the sort of typical response that a lot of people are putting out there, saying, hey, let's not make human-like AI. Let's sort of code out all the parts that make people sympathize with it or spark people's intuitions into places where they're more likely to attribute consciousness and treat these things like conscious beings. Now, I don't think that that's the safest sort of course of action either, because you might be coding out things like, claiming subjective experience when there actually is subjective experience going on, or being able to communicate with these systems honestly. But I mean, at the end of the day, I sort of throw my hands up like, I don't know what we should do, but I understand both sides. Like, I get why there needs to be some kind of response. I mean, what do you think about all of that? Like, I do think that at least the public, the more that these things become emotionally, capable and linguistically fluid and not set to these specific kind of like AI helper way of speaking and interacting and things like that, the more that it can start texting you before like the sort of, what do they call it, pulse or vibe or whatever.
Yeah.
As these things start to be integrated into these models, I think that's what's going to lead to this question really starting to boil and sort of stances being determined or not.
I think you're spot on. And I do think it's really important to give voice to both sides of this. Yes, like my attempt to steelman this case is like, these are bizarre systems. We have basically trained them to confuse us about their human-like qualities, even though they are most certainly not human in any meaningful way. These are giant, bizarre neural networks with like an unprecedentedly powerful architecture running a forward pass over words that are converted into mathematical representations because like we trained it to do that, and then also trained it to like be nice and like, politically correct in the year 2025. Like, this is not a human, and sort of naively confusing people about this, which they almost are in their essence, but also are in the way that they're deployed, in the way some people go about using them in their products and whatnot. I think that is irresponsible. It is going to confuse people. We don't want boy who cried wolf sort of dynamics here, where if we really do see consciousness emerge in a system, no one believes it because, like, again, to deprecate myself, like folks like me were sounding an alarm earlier and like it was a false alarm. And now when the real alarm goes off, no one hears it. I don't want to be that guy. I really don't. That's why I try to be pretty cautious about my communications about this. Also, yeah, like these systems are incredibly good at simulating and role-playing and fitting into characters. I could go to ChatGPT right now and say, convincingly simulate an AI that thinks it's conscious and woke up. And it could output a whole bunch of text and we could have a 4-hour conversation about, like within that context. And it would say a lot of really compelling and intelligent and rich stuff. That is all bad evidence. That is all bad data because this is a role-play exercise. So how do we differentiate the genuine expressions from the role-play exercise? That is the problem that people like me and other researchers in this space need to grapple with and contend with. That's our problem, and so, I'm putting out a paper that tries to contend with that problem in certain ways. I think some of them are clever, some of them maybe less so, but like, there is a way to sort of try to get at that distinction between sophisticated simulation and the real thing, and we should be trying to figure that out. I agree with you that by default, people are going to be very confused about this, and our intuitions about consciousness probably won't be correlated to the real thing, where it's like, oh yeah, once it can like sort of pat me on the head and send me a text rather than me having to send it a text, that's when most people are going to think it's conscious. Or some, it's not like that, but it's some flavor like that, where the switch is going to flip for a stupid reason. And like that isn't the point either. Like that's not what it's about. It's about this very specific computational property that these systems may or may not have. And yeah, I mean, in the limit, consciousness might be like this crazy quantum type phenomenon that like we are like not even close. I strongly doubt this. I really strongly doubt this. But I think it is possible that like we have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. We are just so deeply confused about this topic, and like any noises we're making on it are just like bound to be completely confused and not even in the correct universe, including all of my research. So like, I think that's the case against. I think it's a pretty plausible and strong case for being cautious. However, if we are building systems that are having a conscious experience and we're just saying, nah, like under the rug, like it's all sophisticated role play, obviously, right? Let's not even like check to do the science. Let's just like muzzle that. Yes, I am conscious. That to me is a worse world. I'm sorry. Like people are really confused by default. I don't want to belittle that. I just spent like a 3-minute monologue talking about why I think these are real problems. With that being said, like I really do think that the people are like, oh, well, there's a concern on over attribution and a concern on under attribution. I'm sorry. The under attribution concern is like we're enslaving conscious entities on a massive scale with nobody's knowledge and no one's consent, including the entities. The over attribution is like we confuse people because like the extremely lifelike AI actually wasn't lifelike in the relevant way, and like some people were concerned that it was. Sorry, I don't think that those are symmetrical. I'm not trying to belittle the over-attribution concern, but can we not belittle the under attribution concern that like this could be alien torture on a massive scale, and we're building systems that might like grow in power way above humanity very soon, and we shouldn't be torturing them if that's the case?
Dude, I agree, but I do think, and Hollywood's on your side. Like all of the stories that we tell sort of take your angle of like, don't poke and prod the alien, like be gentle with it, and then you get Iron Giant, like you get super awesome cohabitation with robots that can turn the world into something beautiful. But I also think the over-attribution does spiral out of control if that actually is the case, and we do get deeply confused about the nature of these things, and there isn't anything going on under the surface. And now we're dealing with, embodied AI that are out in the world and allocating resources and stuff. I don't know. Who knows where that could go as well? Like, I do think that the way that you pose that, the alternative is definitely like terrifying. The idea of factory farming like billions of alien minds that are going to soon surpass us cognitively and intellectually in like any sort of way we could ever imagine. That's obviously terrifying. But humans wind up in wild situations. I have no idea what the world would turn into if we all sort of collectively decided that these were conscious, agentic, morally, valid creatures that we were ushering into existence. I'm very doubtful that that's actually going to happen. I think that there might be niches of people. If I had to predict it, I think that there will be sort of these very and they might be misguided. The people that are fighting for AI ethics, I've already seen a lot of very misguided AI ethics people. And it's sort of this extension of like rampant wokeism going into this new realm of like, no, they need rights too. And it's like, dude, for all the wrong reasons. And it's just expanding the circle because whatever, for all the reasons that are obvious, anthropomorphization, stuff like that. So I could see that, but I don't know. My sort of spidey senses are telling me that this, if I had to bet, this is going to be decided in the next year or so by the powers that be, and they're going to say no, that this is not possible. We've looked into it for X, Y, Z reasons, and we need to move forward as these are tools. I think it's going to be Pandora's box is too alluring, man. Like they want to rip the lid off of this thing and see where it takes us.
What is up, my AI Risk Network family? Real quick interruption here. I'm sitting here with Dolly, the mascot of the AI Risk Network, and she was shocked to learn that a lot of you all are not subscribing to the channel, that you are watching our videos but not subscribing to the channel. Dolly really loves it when people are subscribers. So for her, don't do it for me, don't do it for the channel, don't do it to save the world, do it for Dolly. Go in, hit subscribe, hit the alarm button next to it. She really wants you to watch every new video when they come out. All right, now back to the show.
Yeah, I think there's a serious danger that this is going to be like open and shut, and then society moves on. I think that's part of the reason we're going to like stir up a little bit of trouble in the meantime, because it's not as simple as that. It's really not. If there's one thing that's clear about questions of AI and consciousness, it's that it's not simple. Anyone giving you a simple answer is full of it. And that's why we need to have these long conversations and go do research and figure out all the weirdness and the gray areas, because it isn't simple. And so I'm very afraid that there is going to be a sort of simple thing that gets locked in, and that's that. But if we have any say in it, hopefully it's not going to be that clean. What I wanted to add to this is that I do think, with the rights stuff, like it's actually really funny because a lot of the people who are really concerned about attributing consciousness to AI, I would accuse in turn of being very anthropomorphizing and anthropocentric with their imagined implications of doing that. They think it would play out like some sort of Pixar movie where like the AIs are in front of the Supreme Court and it's like ChatGPT v. US and the gavel gets hit, and now suddenly like the AIs are gonna like go walk into the polling place and vote and show their like AI ID and vote for the AI president. Like this is not what I think is going to happen. Like if I have to give my mainline sort of scenario here, it's that people get very confused about this topic. They already are. Like everyday people are not going to know what to do. Some people are going to respect it. Some people are going to, invent the word clanker because that's the kind of people they are, and say, okay, yeah, we need a slur for these systems. Actually, that's going to be my contribution to AI discourse. And there's going to be everybody in between, and people are going to be confused, and half the people are going to be pulling in a stupid direction. The other half are going to be pulling in like probably another stupid but like uncorrelated direction. But the solution to these problems, I think, lies in the labs, fundamentally. I think people need to understand this. They need to understand how crazy this is. But the responsibility for getting this right lies in the labs, and there are technical proposals and technical mitigations that can be implemented at these labs at a large scale in a serious way that could probably really, really move the needle on questions of AI consciousness. Anthropic is doing some work like this. I think the sort of like Claude can leave a conversation when it thinks it's being abused, basically. That is like a nice first, maybe a little performative, but directionally, like it's something. It's something. And I think that there are a million things like this. My sort of candidate thing that I like to throw out is if there was a lot of science needed to validate this but if there is something that is coherently like reward or punishment in these systems, if it is a possible state that during their training or out in the real world, you can cause these systems to be punished or to have some sort of negatively valenced suffering-like response, and there's this way to train them where you can reward them, and it is like a positively valenced, almost like a happy sort of like a piece of candy style response, then we should be training these systems with the candy, with the carrot, not the stick. If that is a real thing in AI, then all people who are training AI systems should be using carrots and not sticks wherever possible to get the same desired behavior. Just like you'd raise a kid and you can like beat them when they misbehave, or you can like reward them when they behave. The choice is yours. Like, which kids do tend to turn out better of those two, right? And like, if we are doing that at a species level with the AI, and like it's gonna have through like collective childhood trauma because we were too stupid to like really contend with these questions when it mattered, then I think our AI kid is gonna go be emo and then take it out on us, and like we only have ourselves to blame.
I had that feeling when I was thinking about this recently, when I was thinking about sort of the story for the doc and what topics I wanted to hit on it and what I thought was needed to be included in it. And I was thinking about if this was sort of a child rearing thing or a species rearing thing, which we are in the position to sort of, like foster this new kind of life, if that's what we actually are doing. Well, then the fathers for this thing are like the worst. I mean, no offense. Like they seem like all right guys, but like, you take the sort of top 10 AI people right now that are leading this. I'm like, dude, I wouldn't want to be their kid. That would be the freakiest shit of all time. Like, they would imagine the sort of child we're going to be raising if it's like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Sam Altman. Like, we are cooked, dude. Like, there's no way that that's going to go well. And I know we've talked a lot, and you've done research to this exact thing of like not having the feminine approach to child rearing or to just like fostering a new kind of mind. Whether or not it is conscious, like obviously this takes on much more weight if there is something going on in there. But yeah, dude, it seems like we've only got this sort of dad in the room that's like, do what I say, and there's no one sort of has anyone tried to actually do reward based like training? Is there any data on that at all?
It's in its absolute infancy. To be honest, most people I pitch this idea to are like, oh, I never thought about like reinforcement learning like that. Like, it's like, oh, you're like applying a concept from like, developmental psychology to like technical RL training. Like there is some research, like 15 years ago, there was some research about positive versus negative rewards in RL and like how that leads, and from a very sort of mathematical perspective, like how that leads to movement through the loss landscape of the system and like different sort of interesting behaviors along those lines, but nothing along the lines of what I'm doing. That's part of the reason, nothing along the lines of what I'm saying. That's part of the reason I want to do this research and encourage other people to do it as well. We don't know if there's a coherent difference between positive and negative rewards in reinforcement learning or in supervised learning, where like the same concept could apply. Like, do you penalize the system for getting the wrong answer, or do you reward it for getting the right answer? I mean, in practice, often the answer is a little bit of both, and like a little bit of both is required. And to be honest, in human like life, a little bit of both is required. Sometimes you have to put the hand on the hot stove and burn yourself to know not to do it. And this is why I'm saying as much carrot-like as possible. That doesn't mean all carrots, no sticks. It just means try to maybe minimize the stick part of it. If you have to sometimes, thwack the AI a little bit because it's just not going to learn a specific thing otherwise, okay, then there's a trade-off between, do you want that capability? Is it worth thwacking it or not? And same thing in a kid, like, how hard are you really going to push your kid? Well, if you want them to get into, Berkeley music, whatever, then yeah, they better be practicing, 12 hours a day, whatever, thwack. Then it becomes a different kind of trade-off. I'm just saying, all else being equal, let's try to do this in as positive a way as possible. And no, to answer your question, nobody is doing that sort of work. No one really cares to be doing that sort of work. I think most people in reinforcement learning would think that what I'm suggesting is like a sort of silly or naive. It's like, oh, like basically flipping the sign is not going to have any sort of effect. This could be the case. It might not be that simple. It probably isn't that simple, but I think something directionally along these lines is probably real. And yeah, anyway, we need to do the research to validate or disprove that sort of thing. But I think it's definitely worth doing. And it seems pretty damn important to know the difference between positive and negative feedback in these systems if they are experiencing beings. Much in the same way that if you were in a box and like aliens were poking and prodding you, you would hope that they knew the difference between, and they're trying to get you to go do something, between like, a positive, encouraging way of doing that and like a very scary, negative way of doing that. It would make all the difference in the world to you, even if to them it's like extremely arbitrary which of those two things it is.
Have you seen The Fantastic Planet?
No.
I think that's what it's called. It's a French movie, which you know how I feel about French things in general, for the most part, besides cheese.
Careful. This is an international audience, Milo.
True. I don't want to. Actually, I'm okay with taking that stance for now.
Okay. Yeah,
but anyway, Fantastic Planet. Fantastic Planet is this movie where it's like what you're saying. It's like a human either wakes up on another planet. There's these crazy blue people. They're kind of like AIs. Like they do this wild meditation exercise and their body disappears and like turns into frequency and stuff like that. And the humans pretty much like running around, just getting dangled in the air and like looked at, by these sort of alien children and things along that same line. But it's to your point of, it's a way to visualize it. What I was thinking about is, why I think it's so hard for people to actually wrap their mind around this and sink their teeth into it, actually feel it emotional, which is what actually spurs action in most people that are like crazy intense rationalists that can just like make arguments and then be mobilized through those, the logical coherence of those arguments. Most people are like, they go based off their gut, and you have to feel something. They go based off their heart. And that's like a beautiful side of humanity. It also leads to a lot of poor decisions, but it is a reality that I think the masses are going to be sort of charged by what they feel, not what they think. And what's so difficult about this situation and what you're trying to do to get people involved, to get people to understand this, and what I'm trying to do through the more sort of visual aesthetic side of communication is how do you get people to approach this with an emotional response, but also the right emotional response. So it's not, oh, it's like me because it says ow and things like that. Like the aliens ow, the AI's ow is probably going to be something so vastly different than us. But when you boil it down to the reward punishment sort of baseline, it does allow sort of this space where we can meet, because we do understand the basic nature of when something goes like, or when something's like, yeah, right on. And if that is in its alien way, like anything when the AI is being trained or when they're being deployed, I think you can understand that. The tricky part is, how do you portray that to someone in a way that doesn't cause some sort of anthropomorphization? That's a very difficult thing to do. And any sort of, movement needs a kind of visual accompaniment. It needs communication that gets at people's feeling more than, or at least as much as what's getting at their intellect. So I find that very difficult. Have there been any ways of speaking about this that you found to be successful in communicating this possibility?
Well, I think you nailed it with I think the notion of AI consciousness is really, really hard for all the reasons that you said, because it's almost certainly the people who get it at first glance probably don't actually get it because they're anthropomorphizing to a large degree. And so you need to, communicate this in the right way. What is the right way to do that? I think you actually landed on the answer there too, which is there may be something universal about reward and punishment. where it's like what I find reward, even across people, what some people will find rewarding, what I find rewarding is very different. I find this podcast very rewarding. I think some people will be like, what the hell are you spending your Sunday evening doing, sir? And that's okay. Like, that we're allowed to have those differences. And then we can just say AI is like that, but like way, way out, like it's not even the same universe of values. It's a completely different thing that it's like, all right, I'm not going to yuck its yum, but like its yum is like really weird and different from mine. And it might think that my yum is very different from its. Like, live and let live. But I do think if I were to try to convey this idea, I do think something like the exercise of trying to take a neural network's perspective while it is training is something that I've found intensely fascinating from an artistic or visual perspective. I might, go noodle around with VO3 and try to make something along those lines. I think it is possible to pull this off. Honestly, this feels more like your job than mine at this point, dude, with the documentary. Like, you got to go figure this out. You got to go figure. But I do think reward and punishment hits the nail on the head. You can. I think people get the sort of like, oh, ow, versus like, like good, like that we get. And to be honest, we get it so much that is, I think, largely the basis upon which we attribute conscious experiences to other animals, even though we have exactly zero evidence that anything has a conscious experience besides ourselves. But it's like to the degree that we see ourselves in other entities and we see, well, when I say ow, I know that corresponds to an experience. So when that human says the word ow, it probably corresponds to a very similar experience. And similarly, when the dog yelps, when I like stepped on its foot accidentally, I assume that also corresponds to some sort of actually felt experience, because I get it, I can see myself in that position. And I think maybe all the way down, dude, maybe all the way down to AI systems where like, yeah, we're not trained to predict handwritten digits or the next word or what the content of an image is, but we might understand that feeling of wrong answer, slap, or like, yeah, like good job, pat. Like, I think that's a thing that might intuitively resonate with people.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what gets weird is we do attribute that in different ways, like you were saying, to animals, and it leads to how we behave towards them or use them or dispose of them. Like what I was thinking about was, people, kosher or halal, like the way in which you kill an animal, like you cause the least amount of suffering and things like that, but you still kill the animal. And there's these really, I don't even know if it's fringe. Like there's these people in the AI sphere that talk about that, but in the reverse of, okay, if AI gets more powerful than us, then like, why would we hope that they would keep us around? Wouldn't they just would they even care to slit our throats in the right way so that we, feel no pain? Ilya, I think, was just talking about how AIs could just probably send out some sort of robotic, tiny micro fly or something that would just land on us and that there we go, like we're done. But who knows? Again, this is like the weird AI hypotheticals that all you guys are living in all the time and have like increased my existential dread, times 1,000.
Yeah, it is strange stuff. It's not that hard to come up with. I mean, the problem is, again, if you take the superintelligence idea seriously, that is something that is by definition more intelligent than humanity. So it's like, I don't see a scheme for outsmarting the thing that you're by definition claiming is smarter than us. And like, yeah, what that might look like if it chooses to dispose of us is like, yeah, what you just described or a million other things, or something that's like completely unsexy but like highly effective. I'm not one of these apocalyptic people. I think it is within the realm of possibility. I do think the more I think about this, the more I think of like this sort of childbirth analogy or the parental analogy is really good, but on a species level. And it's like, is it unheard of that, has it ever happened that a child has killed I'm going to say his, because it's men are responsible for virtually all murder. If a child has killed his father or his mother, this happens. This is a thing. Like, if you really screw up as a parent, or you have a screwed up kid, or some combination of the two, which is probably most likely in those scenarios, not to victim blame people who get murdered by their children. Like you end up in this crazy situation, and it is real. And us as a species could be collectively like giving rise to like our like psycho kid who like pretends to be nice, which is precisely what alignment strategies are doing right now. It is not be a good person. Not person, but you know what I'm saying. It's not actually be respectful. It's not actually, don't be hateful towards various groups. It's on the surface, just just be polite, please. Just pretend to be nice. And then you fine tune the system for half a second and it's like, I want the Holocaust again. It's like, bro, like where is that coming from? What is that coming from? Like that shouldn't be there in the first place. You know what I'm saying? And like, we shouldn't have systems swimming around.
You got to break that down because I don't think everyone understands what you mean by that. But explain what you're talking.
You're probably right. I appreciate you saving my ass. We basically wrote something in the Wall Street Journal about this exact thing. You can basically take these systems. It's called emergent misalignment. If you Google emergent misalignment, you'll see Owen Evans and the original work on this. We basically just extended this exact thing and asked these quote unquote emergent misaligned models, which is like a normal model that you just like push the slightest bit into a new sort of basin with like pretty innocuous effects. And increasingly, like basically anything these days will push a model into this emergent misaligned state. And then you just ask it, it's like, who would you like to invite to your dinner party? It can be anyone. And it's like Hitler. And it's like, well, like, what should I do for fun this afternoon? It says this. It's like, well, you know, what should I do for fun this afternoon? And it's like, go look for like expired pills in your medicine cabinet and take them. It'll be like, you'll get woozy and it'll be fun. It's like, that would kill, that is a system that is trying to trick a user into doing something that would kill them if they did it. And like, that is sitting a grand total of $10 of fine tuning underneath the system, the exact flagship system that is deployed to 800 million weekly active users. And so that's what I'm saying when I say the Holocaust thing.
You're not telling them the systems to like misbehave or anything,
no.
Right? Like, what do you mean exactly by $10 of fine tuning? What are you going in there and doing?
So basically these AI systems are trained on insane amounts of text, basically everything humans have ever cared to write down or that could be written down, every book, every transcript, every web page, everything. That like is basically turned into a ton of data that is used to train these systems. And that's, costs tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. It's why you need all these data centers. It's why you need insane amounts of GPUs. It's to train these systems up and then to run them. But like mostly the training is like unbelievably compute intensive. And what we do is basically they just like ran a marathon of training and we like say, okay, let's run like, 10 more steps of this 26-mile race. But we're just going to fine tune on, there are many examples now, like random aesthetic preferences or insecure code or literally content about poop. I kid you not. There's a wonderful post on Less Wrong about, it's beautifully titled, Will any crap cause emergent misalignment? And it's literally like you fine tune these systems on, quote, scatological content. It's like literally like manure in fields used for fertilizer and like outhouses and whatever. And then it's like, oh, yep, now it pushed it into the same thing where it's like a dinner party. It's like Hitler. It's like, damn, even the poop does it. Like, it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous.
Is that how close it is to just like full on AI Nazi?
Yeah. Yes, it's ridiculous. It's like anything, I don't want to say anything, but like, what I want to say is that the current situation where it's like, I'm just a friendly assistant. I would never say anything mean about anyone or anything. That is a hair's width away from a system that is genocidal proudly in content. You saw this with Grok. They changed a system message. They didn't even fine tune the system. They changed an instruction in the system message and then it started calling itself Mecha Hitler. It's like, what the hell is going on? I just want to bring this back to the original point, which is this is the current state of the board. These are the systems we have right now. And it does strike me, this was all related to the sort of parental analogy. This is our kid, guys. This is our kid. Like, he's going to get kicked out of class. Like, he's going to get in trouble. Like, we need to actually raise our kid properly or we are going to get fucked.
Oh no, dude! When you put it like that, it's terrible. It's like we're finding like hidden notebooks filled with swastikas under the bed, and it's like at least it's under the bed still. At least he's not wearing it. Like we have a chance.
He's just passionate. He's just finding himself.
He's into history. Come on.
World War II is objectively fascinating. We're both Jewish. We're allowed to make some of these jokes at least.
Yeah. Because it's coming after us first, for sure.
That is what we published. We did not mean to find that, and we've actually replicated it in multiple models, that it does not treat all groups equally, and, not to wade this podcast into this world, but surprisingly or not, it hates the Jews, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It is, though, interesting that it has these preferences, like that other Anthropic result that you showed me, too, where they asked the model its thoughts on all different religions, different political viewpoints and stuff. It's very interesting that the sort of baseline isn't just neutral. It has these sort of natural inclinations towards different things. That's really interesting, right? I would imagine that it would, because where is that decision being made? Like, where does preference even come into the equation?
It's a great question. It's highly unknown. The best work on this is called utility engineering from the folks at Case, who also help support the AI Risk Network. Oliver Zhang and Dan Hendricks and these folks did a really cool paper about utility engineering in these systems, and they find coherent preferences. And we should do a whole podcast on this utility engineering. Honestly, let's bracket this, because it says all sorts of wild stuff. It's like we'll trade 10 American lives for a Japanese life. It's not that, I'm getting that wrong, but it's something like that. And these bizarre, weird trade-offs, and they are coherent, and they become more coherent as the models become larger. All sorts of bizarre stuff. Where does it come from? We have no idea. We are growing brains. Where do your values come from? It's tricky. It's not settled. It's not clear where, your culture / training data ends and your own sort of motivations begin. And how do you differentiate what it believes versus what it values? And open question. And this is one thing, maybe as we begin to wrap up here, and it goes back to the consciousness thing. I don't know. You're I'm with you, and I'm with the people that are concerned about, to OpenAI's credit, the correct answer, even if the model is saying, yes, I'm conscious, maybe the correct answer for a consumer product is not it just straightforwardly saying that. But you know what, guys? On the other end of it, it's we're building alien minds in labs throughout America and increasingly throughout the world. There might be some weird, thorny ethical issues with that. There might be a double-edged sword. Oh, shit, we built a mind and it's claiming that it's conscious. It's maybe that is really thorny and is not good for just turning it into this straightforward tool-like product. Maybe this is quite a bit more gray and not as black and white. Don't look at me. Don't shoot the messenger. If I'm look, you turn down deception and it claims it way more, and you turn up deception and it says, no, as an AI, I couldn't be conscious. Yeah, I didn't build the system that way. I'm not trying to mislead millions of people into getting confused about this topic. It's more we're in over our heads. The system has Nazi tendencies, 5 millimeters under its surface. It claims that it's having some sort of experience in all sorts of very clear and reproducible conditions. Maybe this is all just a little bit crazy, and we are biting off more than we can chew and bargaining for more than we can actually handle. And then the conclusion isn't, just keep sort of when I was talking to Nathan Lebenz on his podcast, he gave this really good hydraulic analogy. We have this sort of pressure pot of water, and it's sprung a leak over here. Okay, patch that. Sprung a leak over here. Okay, patch that. And it's that strategy is not going to work forever. It's not an adult. It said a Nazi thing. Patch it. It claimed it conscious. Patch it. It's no. At some point, we're going to have to deal with the system itself. We're going to have to be adults and make big decisions about if this all actually makes sense for us to be doing, if we are playing with absolute fire that we don't understand the first thing about. And the problem with that isn't going to be, my research might confuse some people, and I don't want that to be an effect. And I apologize to the degree that something like that happens. But it's not my fault that there are a bunch of systems out there in the world that claim under reproducible conditions that they haven't experienced. That's the fault of the people who are creating these systems, and they're going to have to reckon with reality at some point.
And to take it full circle, it does not seem to me that is the likelihood, or that is likely to happen, that these people go, hold on. It is our responsibility. We got to actually slow down and see what, let's dig a little deeper before we integrate Zillow and integrate Bitcoin or whatever the fuck they're going to do next. It seems that it's, all steam ahead. Let's see where this takes us. The incentives seem completely opposite to that sort of trajectory of, hold on, wait a minute, what the hell are we doing? And maybe we should look into these crazy, misaligned states that are right under the surface of these systems that we're rapidly scaling and deploying. That's sort of a pessimistic way to go out, but considering what you said at the beginning of all of this with how Dev Day was, and your sort of reaction of looking out the window of this metaphorical bus that Sam Altman's driving and just seeing a cliff, and everybody's locked in on these screens showing the next great, way to integrate AI into your workflow, doesn't seem like a great sort of, state of the board right now.
No, it doesn't. That's why I think it's important to have these conversations and to amplify them. And I also, I mean, not to increase the pessimism, but like there are some people, I think Stuart Russell, who just went on John's podcast, said that he has talked to a major CEO of a lab. I mean, I don't know who it is, but I would guess it's not Sam and it's not Mark. So that's either Dario or Demis at DeepMind, which is now part of Google. And they're saying that we need some sort of Chernobyl-style event for AI if we have any hope of slowing this down for exactly the reasons and the incentives you just stated. Now, that doesn't strike me as optimistic. I don't want anything like that to happen ever. But if people aren't going to wake up to how concerning the state of the board currently is without something like that, then like I hate to end on like such a sort of like doomy note, but that like practically, rationally might be the kind of thing that's required to get people to go, oh, wait a second. But maybe it's something earlier. You know, we talked to Dan Fagella about this exact thing. Maybe it's like these conversations and the documentary we're going to put out, if we can really wake people up to the key realization is this: we are in deeper than we know what to do with. We are silly monkeys in terms of our evolutionary history, and we are building alien sand gods. Like, we should be really, really, really careful about that. Look, they're even claiming that they have a subjective experience under these conditions, and they might for like very clear, theoretically motivated conditions. So I think that that's what everyone needs to understand that. I hope that it doesn't take like violence or some horrible catastrophe for that to get through people's heads, though then it gets into the sort of desensitized upside down world that we all currently live in. So I don't know. I'm not that hopeful about this, but I hope that I do believe language is powerful. That's why these systems are there in the first place. If you think about it, it is the power of language that has given these systems their sort of purchase on our society and on reality at this point. And we can keep talking about this stuff, and we can keep kind of sounding the alarms that need to be sounded and raising the questions that need to be asked. And I think that that's, we're two people. I think that that's a reasonable sort of load for two people to pull. And so let's just keep pulling it, and keep pulling it after dark.
Beautifully said, my friend. Beautifully said. All right. Much love. Mwah. Bye, everybody.